Alright, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, the Wheel of Time Amazon TV show starts off with a bit of an expo dump. The world is broken. Men who were born with great power believe they could cage darkness itself. The arrogance. I don't really want to get into reviewing things until I finish the recap, but we're going to come back to this one. Moraine says the dragon is reborn. We don't know who they are. We don't know where. We don't know their gender. We transition into the first scene, which is some Red Odd Job members. If you check the Amazon thing, you find out that is Leandrin leading them. It's a pretty good representation of her. From there, they chase down a madman who has been driven insane by the taint on Sidene. We see some pretty ruthless dialogue back and forth before she lashes out and presumably stills and or kills him. Moraine and Land are on the bluff above observing this. Moraine comments to Land, she doesn't think that that's the Dragon Reborn, and that there are 4 Taviran in the 2 rivers that they need to go check out next to see who the Dragon Reborn might be. From there, we transition to the 2 rivers, assumedly, and we see a ceremony where Egwene is being admitted into the women's circle. She is shoved from a cliff into a fast-moving river with rapids that, if you believe her dad later, are a serious threat to life and limb. It's a decent metaphor for Sidar. She floats with the current and surrenders herself, gaining mastery over it, rising above. From there, we cut over to Tam and Rand making their way into the village. They have a bit of dialogue centering around Rand's past with Egwene and his concern there. Then from there, we get into the village. It's not good. They are having a party. Matt is gambling. He's losing a lot of money quickly. Daze is very cruel to him. I really want to reiterate, Matt has a gambling problem, and his friends, gamble with him. But okay. He mentions his sisters, so everybody is aware of how hard they have their situation. So his friends are concerned still, but they're still gambling with him. From there, we get a little bit more of festivities for, presumably, I would assume this is the lead up to bell time, but we'll just assume it's just some good old revelry at the tavern at the inn. So we get Perrin and Rand leaning against a wall, having a discussion again about Rand and Egwene's relationship, and namely the fact that she has not talked to him since she got back from her admittance to the women's circle ceremony. Assumedly, this is going to be a problem for the 2 of them. Nynaeve comes over and admonishes Perrin for being at the inn with everyone else when his wife is back at the forge working iron alone. We'll come back to this. We're coming back to all this stuff. I'm coming back to it. Egwene comes into the inn, and Bran confirms that the ceremony was dangerous with his concern for her well-being. And then there's a bit of a commentary on money and all that stuff, where Bran tells his daughter she needs to get to work after her ceremony, and Daze comes up and says no, she's partying tonight, which I mean, that would not be what Bran would do on the day of her ceremony in the books. So we interrupt festivities from Moraine and Lan entering the bar. When Moraine comes in, like, Lan introduces her, and like she introduces herself as an Aes Sedai by presenting her very ostentatious Great Serpent ring. From there, we learn that Meryn is aware of the Aes Sedai, and we learn that there's a lot of things different in the show than in the books. Perrin's wife, whenever we get back to the Forge, because it's a hard cut from the end to the Forge, she looks like Bretta from The Last Kingdom, which, I mean, I guess if you're going to have someone work in the Forge, like, she would definitely fit the bill. But he walks up meekly behind her and says, "I love you." She says, "I know," and leans against him. Very unconvincing. I don't think I need to tell you guys what that is going to mean. If you've seen the episode, you know what's coming. So from here, we go back to the inn outside of it. Matt's dad is being a bit of a lech, and his mom is a drunkard. So Matt is struggling to get her home, and she's lamenting over his father's behavior. They discuss Moraine's purpose for being in the Two Rivers after the party breaks up. It's just, the two main younger people, Egwene and Rand, and then, her parents, Bran and Meryn, and his dad, Tam. They're discussing why she might be there. Tam speaks some actual truth about. I said, sorry about the truck. I'm sure y'all heard that, but this is my first attempt at streaming. Meryn and Rand, like Meryn does what she would do in the books. Like, she treats him, she treats him well, and then sets the two of them up to talk. Like, so Egwene and Rand are left alone to do the dishes, and Egwene basically lets him down and says, "Hey, I'm going to be a wisdom." Apparently, wisdoms can't get married. It was just kind of like something that generally didn't happen in the books, but okay, maybe it's a little bit different this time. Not a big deal. So they kind of have an amicable breakup. It's not very obvious that anybody has hard feelings here. I feel like it's fine. It's just kind of like whatever. From there, we go to Moraine and land in the bath together. I mean, there's definitely been some suggestion of this throughout the books, like that there's these sort of relationships between Aes Sedai and Warders, but to show something, even this, Shienaren's bathe together, it's not something that would be unreasonable for the two of them to do. I don't think Mr. Rigney would have shown this scene. He's notorious for fading to black, but I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with showing this. I think some of the discussion that they have in the tub, I think is not great. Moraine's opinion of the town is not very good, and that's really not her. That's really not her in the books. So we go to the couple. The breakup is continuing. Like, they have sex, and they actually have the discussion, and they break up. We have an ominous cut to the Myrddraal riding through town, which, not gonna lie, pretty good, pretty awesome shot. You should definitely watch this and then enjoy it for what it is. It's a bit of a bastardization of the story, but there are definitely some fun. There's fun to be had in watching this. Padan Fain shows up the next morning. He is buying stolen goods from Matt. Again, sorry about the car. I'm not necessarily opposed to Pot Fame being a type of guy who's gonna buy illicit goods. I just, again, it's gonna be part of like the big review. Like the Two Rivers has been heavily changed. From there, we get a little bit more discussion between Rand and Egwene, which, whatever. It has to be done. Like this is part of the story and part of the, it's part of the books too. I feel like there's less relative time spent on it in the books, but that's just because there's so much more going on. And people like this. People like this type of drama, and there's nothing wrong with playing this up. Wisdoms know they can channel, by the way. That's what we find out in this next scene. We go from the city center to Nynaeve cleaning the sacred pool. I'm not sure what this is. If you want to go check out the scene, you can watch it on Amazon Prime, or if not, there's an IGN spoiler for this scene specifically. That is not good. If you know anything about the Wheel of Time, you'll know that a big contributing factor to the decline of the power of the White Tower is that the women of the land do not know that they can channel necessarily, and they do not interact with Aes Sedai to be told that they can. Wisdoms do not know they can channel. They do not go to the tower. Nynaeve being raised by the wisdom is a bit bad. It kind of ruins the justification for her being able to track Lan, but whatever. We'll just kind of give it we're gonna give them all that because the scene gets worse. The scene gets worse because Nynaeve's mentor, who could channel, went to the tower and was turned away for being a peasant. I don't know about you guys, but like I don't think the Aes Sedai are perfect. They're definitely some Machiavellian people. They're manipulative, but this is like one fault they really don't have. They are very egalitarian when it comes to class. Like the meanest beggar can come to Tar Valon and have a meeting with the Aes Sedai. She can go there and like be received by the Amerlin seat if necessary. This is not the tower. But okay, you gotta shove that anti. Yeah, I guess I don't even know if it's anti-capitalist because like they're not capitalists. They're just mercantilists. I guess I don't know. Oppression bad. Next scene we get the lads consoling Rand about his breakup with Egwene, which good. I like it. We kind of go back and forth with the people right here in a little bit of rapid succession, but you find out that Rand and Mat and Perrin are still very good friends, and they give him back his money that he lost to them gambling. So like they really weren't taking advantage of him. It was the women, or I guess it was just that one woman who took the money and walked away. I don't know if there was anybody else who took his money and kept it. But it seems like there are still some people in the Two Rivers, at least the main cast, that are people of conscience and honor. The other parts of this back and forth, we have Nynaeve and Egwene listening to the wind, but they're obviously making the trees shake. This is really not how this would be portrayed if this was accurate to the book, but okay, whatever. We're not going to be accurate to the book. We know that now. We are certain of that by now. During all of this, Lan finds proof that there is a shadow spawn presence in the area. He finds dead sheep carcasses that are arranged in the dragon's fang pattern. That is half of the yin-yang symbol. It would be the black half, but this is red because it's sheep carcasses. In the middle of the forest, he just kind of looks at it ominously, and then we cut back, and that's when we get the scene with Matt getting his money back. So, as I said, we kind of cut back and forth here very quickly. So now we get to the nighttime. Beltane is upon us. It is now a remembrance ceremony instead of just the celebration of the spring. Rand and Tam are back at their home, as happens in the book. We have a little bit of a timeline skip. There's an extra day added to all of this, but whatever. We see Perrin and his wife celebrating in town. They obviously there's some affection there, but there's problems. You can see it. I wonder what the problem is. Nynaeve is alone on the edge of town. She's very somber. Meryn, raises the mood up once people have had a proper amount of somberness. It's very good. That's good to her character. That's who she is. That's how she would behave if this is how this ceremony is done now. No problem. I guess they really didn't want to do a maypole thing. So Lan tells Moraine about the Fist of Trollocs in the area and suggests that they run away. The man dedicated to fighting the Shadow, to dying in the Blight, wants to run away. The dancing is interrupted by an arrow bursting through Tom Thane's chest. Tom Thane, I don't think he's prominent in the books if he's in them at all. It doesn't matter. There's plenty of people. The Two Rivers, and Thane is a good last name for the Two Rivers. Trollocs come barging in. CGI is it's pretty good. It's good. I like it. Like I said, there's a lot of good things to be had in the series. If you don't mind the changes from the books, you can definitely have a lot of fun with this. They can be intimidating. I know my sister tapped out at this point because they were too scary for her. They rampage for a bit. There's minimal resistance from the townsfolk, which they're startled. They've never seen Trollocs before, assumedly still, unless many things have changed. Nynaeve shows up and gets Egwene thinking straight. Egwene's been kind of running around with a chicken like a head cut off type of situation, just like everybody else. And the two of them hide. It's not the best hiding place, but no one's looking at them, so they can just kind of take a minute and obsess. Perrin and his wife barricade themselves inside their forge. Good, solid. I like it. That's definitely the action Perrin would take, especially. And I want to be clear, right? They aged up the characters. That's perfectly reasonable for Perrin to have a wife at this point, because he would. He is a very committed man. He's diligent. My objection to the earlier scene is not necessarily that he has a wife, but that he would not be there pulling his weight while she's working. He is not that person. He works hard. And to characterize him as someone who would slack off at a party while his wife is enjoying slaving at the forge, working iron alone, is not the case. He would be there enjoying working the iron with her. And I think, and we're going to stay on this, we've stayed on this for a while for, number one, the reason is because I haven't been paying attention to the screen, but also because this is just, this storyline is triggering to me, and we're going to come back to it. So we're in this fight with the Trollocs, right? Perfect time to kill her off so that we're, set back to the storyline of the books, and there's justification for some of Perrin's later, we can call them foibles. They're flaws in his character. He is overly protective of his wife, and that's something that he struggles with for a long time. And I think if his wife gets killed in this attack, that would give solid justification for it. I still wouldn't like him being characterized as not diligent, but it is what it is. I would have just written that off as a bit of sloppy dialogue and moved on. But we're gonna get to the worst part of this in a minute. Is coming up. So after the Trollocs in the forge, they end up breaking into the forge later, and there's an incident. We're gonna get to that. We cut to Matt and his parents in a room with a bunch of people. He shouts at them about his sisters. They're not there. He goes back out to find them. We don't see this in the books this early, but we do hear about it later that he is this person right now. He is the man who will run into danger to save someone else. This is good characterization. I hate what they did to the Two Rivers to give him this dark and troubled past, because it's supposed to be an agrarian ideal. It's supposed to be like the Shire. This perfect world that you want to preserve. And so he goes and gets his sisters back. That's very strong. I like that. Nynaeve and Egwene try and like help an old man. I think Nynaeve calls him dad. I couldn't make it out perfectly. If she calls him dad, then I guess she does have a dad, and he maybe was just a deadbeat, and that's why the wisdom had a razor. Maybe they'll expand on that later in the series. We'll see. So we cut from the village at this point, which none of the village attack is in the books. We go from Tam, this scene that we're about to go into here, and then eventually we follow Rand back into the village and we see the aftermath. But I like them adding the fight in. They definitely do a lot of good job in this first clip of the fight of characterizing people well and showing us a good, fun action scene. Now we go to the farm with Tam and Rand, where Tam and Rand are they're just sitting there. A single Trolloc bursts into the house. Tam takes his sword and fights him. Tam in the books is a blade master. It takes like a dozen Trollocs to take this man down with a single cut like they do in the show. Like, he does only get the single cut. But if not for Rand being there to take out this one single Trolloc, if he did not have a second man to 2v1 this Trolloc with, he would have lost to a single Trolloc. Tam Thor. A man who probably couldn't best land Mandragoran, but could at least hang with him. He could go. If he did a best of 10, he would probably take a couple. He would take 3 maybe. I think that's saying something. And to have him die he would have died to a single Trolloc if not for Rand. But the fact that he's getting taken down by a single Trolloc is insulting to him as a man. Not gender like man, but like just because he's a man. Like, I'm sorry if you were offended by that verbiage. That is not my intention to cause any drama. So back in town, we get Moraine fighting now. It is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoy her first volley of attacks. If it's just a matter of budget and you can't afford to give Tam more than one Trolloc, okay, fine. But if that's the case, I know where the money went, because there's a lot of Trollocs in this fight, and it costs a lot to do all these effects, maybe? I don't know. But they do the power. It's cool. It's neat. It's fine. Then Daze rallies a group of women to go attack some Trollocs. It's fine. They're doing good. Trollocs get into the forge and start fighting Perrin and his wife. They kill a few of them. Perrin kind of goes into a shell shock mode, and I don't want to like say this animatedly because I don't want to like scare anybody, but just know that this I'm really angry right now, and I'm trying very strongly to keep my voice from being that way. So during this fight, Perrin goes into shell shock mode and he keeps hacking at the Trolloc. Perfectly valid. And if they want to have this be the reason why his wife gets killed by a Trolloc, okay, fine. I'll like this, because that's the thing with him. He gives into the beast sometimes, and he falls into these, I don't want to say like violent trances, but he gives into his animalistic urges when he fights, just out of necessity, because that's just the type of primal combatant that he is. And if he turns from doing this and sees that his wife has been, on the ground, and like as he turns, she gets stabbed by the Trolloc, and he has to go and fight her. Well, that's the cliche, and then nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to have a man be motivated by his wife being killed in front of his eyes anymore. So instead of that, he whirls from hacking at the Trolloc on the ground in his shell-shock state and buries the axe into his wife's stomach and kills her. Now, if you watch the scene, if you see the scene, she is raising her weapon behind him. She is about to strike. She is a dark friend. You know, they're you can have whatever other theories you want to have. Maybe she just really hates her marriage and she wants to kill him. That I doubt that. I think this look on her face right here earlier in the episode is her having received communication from either the Murdral or whoever, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter who. You know, maybe it's in her dreams from Ishamael. Whatever way, she's been told there's an attack coming. You're killing your husband. And number one, her being there attacking him like this as a dark friend. That's a huge thing on the Two Rivers as well, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but if you didn't notice, Padan Fane's a terrible person. Padan Fane is in fact a dark friend. You know, that the kind of creepy fade into the back. Obviously he's a dark friend too, guys. But so she is a dark friend in the Two Rivers living there. Padan Fane was a peddler who came into the Two Rivers, and I feel like that distinction was important to maintaining its idyllic nature until this attack happens, and that makes this attack all the more like meaningful because it's scary. Like they've been living this peaceful agrarian lifestyle for 2,000 years. Like this has been a long time in isolation, and to have her be a dark friend in this area, it just shows how much this area is not like in the books. And I think for me that's a huge negative. I think that the world building Robert Jordan did is, for me, that's why you would buy this series. Like you have this story that spans 14 main books and a prequel, as well as, you know, plenty of compendiums and just info from Robert Jordan to fill in some of the blanks. That is a lot of fun, and if you have the time, if you like fantasy, go read the books, because it's great world building, it's great characterization. There's some parts that drag. If you can push through them, and I think the reason some parts drag is because there's two very different feels to the books, and I've heard from different people, different parts of the later half of the middle drag for them, and that is because they focus on heavily, half of them focus on the female path of the story, and the other half focuses on the male half of the story. And I think there's definitely criticism to be levied at those books, but I think the fact that they have such a difference of opinion when it comes to why they drag kind of shows the whole theme of the differences between the genders in this series. And to just kind of throw away all of that groundwork for some drama in the first episode that you really don't need. If, like, supposedly this is supposed to be Amazon's Wheel of Time contending with Game of Thrones, I don't think this is how you do it. If you go back to Game of Thrones, the series, up until they ran out of books, they didn't hit everything in the books because you literally just can't. But they were pretty faithful. They got the essence. They got the world building correct. They didn't sell out the building of that world to have cheap drama. To have action scenes right away. Like, they definitely have action scenes later on. They definitely have action scenes in the beginning, because you have some fighting. You have like the tense shoving of Bran out the window to end off the first episode, and like the whole first season has plenty of fun shots that you're gonna enjoy, right? Like there's plenty of quote unquote fan service in that show, as well as just keeping the great story and world. This show is not keeping the world the same. It's heavily changing things in that regard. It is heavily changing the story so far, simply with the addition of the 4 Ta'Veren. Like, Egwene is never or maybe it's Nynaeve. They're never confirmed as Ta'Veren. If you wanted to tell me one or both are Ta'Veren, I'd probably disagree with you. But yeah, you're right. It's never confirmed by Logain or Swan, who can see Ta'Veren. But whatever. They walk like a duck, quack like a duck. You know, they're Taviran. It's fine. So my objection to the world building, and I guess we're going to kind of go. We're in the review portion of this because the episode's almost over. The fight scene transitions into a flight, and you know, it follows the book with that. I guess we're going to quickly finish up this review because there is one more big scene that we need to get to that is a huge just. I think it is the perfect scene to encapsulate the fuck you to the fans that I feel like this show is going to end up becoming. This scene right here where Moraine is summoning up all of her power. We're back in this town after Perrin has killed his wife. Perrin killed his wife. I'm still trying to not go off on that because nope. We're moving on. Moraine gets hit. She starts summoning her power, and she tears down the Wine Spring Inn to have large stones to hurl at the Trollocs. Moraine. Okay, so we're gonna get into a little bit of the world. The channeling system. Men are better with fire and earth. Women are better with water and air. Is how we were told. Maybe that's not correct. It doesn't matter. There's no reason though that Moraine could not use fire. You know, the town's not even thatched roofed. She has the ability to control it reasonably well. Even if it's going to do a little bit of damage to the town, it's not going to do necessarily too much, and the Trollocs are already causing fires. She could use just blades of air. She could just cut into these people. Like, you see her do it. You see her and like just snap that Trolloc into pieces. But instead of doing like all that, she could just slice out with a blade and cut them all into halves. Like, it's not difficult for a channeler to just change a battle, and she does it in the books without destroying this inn. So this is not something that narratively was forced on her. This was something they chose to do. You might argue it's for the cool shot. I'm gonna argue that this is this show's version of let the past die, kill it if you have to. She literally tears down a 2,000-year-old structure to kill a group of Trollocs that are charging at her. If you want to get really conspiratorial about it, the Trollocs represent the fans, and they're literally hurling the fandom at us to beat us into submission, to kill, not to kill us. They're not trying to literally kill us. That's ridiculous. But yeah, they're definitely trying to tear down this fandom for profit, for virtue signaling. Maybe I don't know why they're doing this necessarily. Maybe it's just like a Michael Bay situation. I don't know Rafe's directing style or who even would have made this decision, but whatever. We're gonna move on from this, but we're kind of getting shown the message they don't care about the canon by this happening. We get to the next morning after the attack. Perrin brings his wife into the square. We don't get the traveling, but we do get Rand bringing his dad into the town. Nynaeve is nowhere to be found. She was dragged off in the fight. It's a blink if you miss it type of scene. Rand accuses Moraine of bringing the Trollocs, like, immediately after she heals his dad. In the books, he has significantly better manners than this. He actually thanks her, and like the only reason why he considers trusting her is because she heals his dad. Like, he's not like 100% on her side at that point, but he's definitely not a dick about it. I don't want to like. I mean, Rand. I don't like Rand very much in the books. Like, he's not my favorite character, and he definitely becomes a dick later. So starting it early because like they aged them up, maybe that's their justification. Maybe maybe this is supposed to be the stand-in for the townsmen people getting angry at her. But I think this would have been better if it was still the townspeople getting angry at her. And then at this point, this is when they should have done the Weep for Manetheren story, but instead they do it in the second episode, which I feel like it's very out of place there. The little ditty that they do before it is catchy. It's neat. It's fine. The story should have been here. This is where the story should have been. She uses that story to diffuse the townspeople, and then they come to their senses and they disperse the mob and they don't try and attack her anymore. And I really like that in the books. And instead, in the show, we have Rand yelling at her instead of it being the townspeople. And so from there, she reveals the prophecy of the Dragon Reborn. We get a very visible message that there are a lot of Trollocs coming, and you have to leave now. There's no agency given to the characters at this point. They are told, if you do not go, the Trollocs will come back in the books, and like they kind of have to like take that on face value or like figure it out for themselves. And the fact that she says it straight out allows Tam, who, if you find out in the books, before this point, during the dragging of him back to town, that he has been out of the two rivers, and so he's more knowledgeable. It makes sense for him to have this information. And so he tells Rand that she can't lie. If she said it right out that the Trollocs will come back, you need to leave with her. And so he tells him to be careful. He wanted to go, but they have to leave right away in the books. And they have to leave right away in this too. But in this because there's a visible army of Trollocs coming down the hill. Okay, whatever. That's happening now. So the four youths leave with Moraine, and they head for, the White Tower. And at this point, Moraine and I guess just in Moraine's narration, she says they said the good quote. There are no beginnings or endings to the Wheel of Time. It's good. I like it. It always pulls at my heartstrings whenever I hear that. And that's where the first episode ends. So, yes, the beginning, the expo dump at the beginning. That's ridiculous that they would phrase it this way. I can't, calling it the arrogance. There's been some spoilers already, but there's about to be a lot more. In the books, this is worded so Aes Sedai. It's just close enough to being true that they can like argue it and defend it. The world is broken. Okay, there was the breaking. That's technically true, but the world was broke, so it is broken. But like we've lived for 3,000 years since the breaking. Let's say there was a few centuries of breaking and a few centuries of recovery. But by the time you get to 1000 AD or 1000 AB, and you have the Trolloc invasions, the Trolloc Wars, those are established kingdoms. Those are great kingdoms. That's when Manetheren exists. That's 1,000 years after the breaking, 2,000 years before the events of the books. That to me suggests that the world's not broken anymore. Maybe it still is broken and that Sidene is tainted, but the actual physical world has been the way it is, and people are living alive. They're going along. The whole men thinking they could cage darkness. Well, if you know anything about the War of Power, it was a woman who opened that cage to begin with. They were using the one power, the Sidene and Sidar, to do all the works of the Age of Legends. And working together, men and women, using the two distinct, separate power sources of the one power. It is still the one power, even though there are two gendered sources for it. It's all still one. They were able to accomplish great things working together. Mirren, as we find out in the Shadow Rising, with Rand going into Rudion, who is Lanfear. She causes the War of Power. She finds what she describes as a new power source. It is later called the True Source instead of the One Source. Or maybe it's called the One Source instead of the True Source. I sometimes get that verbiage confused. I've read this series a dozen times, and I still get things wrong. I'm not perfect. So so she's the one who causes the War of Power, and Lews Therin with his 100 companions, not she, Moraine, but she, Lanfear. Like Lews Therin and his 100 companions, the dragon, he rides out to Shale Ghul, and he cages the Dark One again. The women refuse to help him. It's only 100 men helping him. They are not allowed to form a circle together because that's the way the power works. You have to have women to form circles. And so they're fighting alone, individually, together. And Lews Therin puts a patch on the Dark One's prison. He cages darkness that the woman released. The arrogance. So he fails, the breaking happens, and like when she says he fails, he really didn't fail. The Dark One was basically released. He was touching the world in ways that we see later in the series, in the books, that are catastrophic, that would cause something equal to the breaking anyways, if not worse. And I really think that the way they set it up in the books leaves it a lot more choose for yourself what the morality of what his decision was there. Like, was he arrogant? Was his hubris to blame for the breaking, or was it a necessary payment or punishment for the hubris of the age? You know, the way they treated power and each other led to this breaking. It was always coming. It was something that had to be done, and the fact that there was 3,000 years of men being persecuted because, let's be honest, they had to be, because if you're going crazy with that much power, you're going to cause damage. Like continents removed, people, like billions died, probably billions of people died. I don't know the exact numbers, but I would be willing to put money that over 10 billion people died. I don't know the exact numbers during the Age of Legends, but they had a lot of people. And then they didn't. So we have these great nations rise up 1,000 years later and all this stuff, and we have all these false dragons, right? They're the false dragon reborn, and they're all men. So why do we not know in the series, in the show, if it's a man or a woman? Moraine says in this initial expo dump, he is reborn. We don't know if he's a man or a woman. Like, how? Okay. And they're basing all of this. They're in canon justification for all of this. I'm not privy to the exact specifics of the event. I'm not a deep out of the book's lore type of guy, but there was an exchange between Robert Jordan and a fan at a con, and the fan asked Robert Jordan that if a male soul was born in a female body, would that person still channel Saidin? And in the books, there is a character that is forced to be reborn in this manner by the Dark One. That, you know, we see that this is true. And so basically, this person was asking, could I exist in your world outside of the Devil's machinations? And Robert Jordan answers yes. If a male soul was put in a female body, they would channel Saidin. And I think that's the justification for saying that Egwene, and even maybe Nynaeve, could be the dragon reborn. And I think that's a little slimy to try and enforce that. Like, the man was just trying to show a bit of compassion. And that's fine. You know, you should definitely do that. I don't think that translating it into this is good. I just leave it be. Like, don't keep banging the drum until the head breaks. So after the expo dump, you know, we had all like the cool stuff with, you know, all that stuff we all already went over. That was all fine for a little while until we got to the women's circle ceremony, and like that definitely was ridiculous. That's not a geographical feature of the Two Rivers. That's not something that these people would do. That's a huge red flag to me that this is already off the rails. We're 5 minutes in and we're already going places that I don't like. So you can make up your mind about most of this stuff, but I mean, if you're one of those people that thinks Perrin killing his wife is better than him not killing his wife, please leave a comment. I would love to discuss that with you because I really do not see that perspective. I don't understand it, and I want to have it explained to me by somebody who honestly holds that belief that Perrin, the man who spends multiple books chasing after his wife, like he is hella protective of his wife, that he just kills this wife instead. You know, like having her get killed is necessary for the rest of the story. Like you can't do this without Fail. My girl Fail, she's got to come into the story. So Layla, she's got to go. But having Perrin do it, and honest, I don't know if it's worse or better, a little bit, like a little bit of a mitigation maybe, that the pattern did it. He did not do this, right? Because if you watch this scene, there's no conscious thought. Like he doesn't even see her. Maybe he hears her, but like I feel like we're hearing from his perspective with that, you know, that buzzing. And it's literally just the pattern saying, you're Taviran, you can't die yet, you have things to do, your fate is not over. And so he, controlled by that web, lashes out and kills her. That's terrible characterization for this character. He is a diligent, like, loving husband. I don't like the way they've treated him in this episode. The way he reacts to this event, perfectly in character. This is how he would react if the pattern made him do this. I really don't like the fact that they made the pattern make him do this. That's really bad. The gambling with Matt, I hate that. I hate that they're making the Two Rivers not this perfect paradise. That's not what it's supposed to be. I already went into my qualms with the fight scene. I've gone into most of these other things already that I said I was going to try and come back to them, but let's be honest, like I kind of went over them right away. I don't know what to say, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, let me know. It was not something I liked. The other ones, the 2 and 3, they were better. They weren't good, but they were better than this. I would say we're gonna go ahead and end this rant here. Drop a comment, hit the like, I guess, do the subscribe thing, yell at me for being terrible with technology and not knowing what I'm doing with the stream. And yeah, there we go. Y'all have a good one.